All right, so we are out here at the beach. We're about to do another Kenzie interview. Hope you're stoked for it.
So stoked.
We're doing it. We were gonna do it in her van, but we're actually gonna bust out these chairs and do it in front of the van, so it's not so tight. We got some beautiful golden hour light over here. Everybody's favorite. So let's get into this interview. You ready?
Ready? Well, almost after I set up this chair.
Yeah, you get set up, then we'll go.
Yeah.
All right, how we looking, dude? This sweet little setup we got right here. I wish we had 2 mics for this, but we only got 1, so I'm gonna be doing what I always do and just putting it to her mouth. So we are currently in front of Kenzie's van. Do people know about your van life?
I thought people knew, but I think a lot of people have recently started following me. So a lot of people are like, "Wait, you lived in a van?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's what I was doing before I got into the adult industry." But yeah, this is my tiny home. I used to live in this one for 2 years, and then I had one smaller, much older than this that I lived in for a year.
So we will be getting into all of that because we are going to cover your story and talk all about Kenzie Love and her journey.
Here we go.
Okay, so let's go back to like high school.
Okay.
Freshman Kenzie.
Rewind.
You know?
Oof.
We're going back.
Freshman Kenzie was a completely different Kenzie.
So this is what I'm interested in because I feel like, you know, high school is when everyone's kind of trying to figure out themselves, like figuring out what friend groups they're a part of, who they are. Like it's a very important time in the development of an adult. You know, like you're going into adulthood.
Yeah.
You know, by the time you graduate, you're basically an adult. Usually 18 years old by the time that's done. And yeah, so what was it like for you going into high school?
I was of a completely different mindset. I was very religious. I sang in the church choir. I was in the youth group on Wednesdays. Church was like my freshman year. I was like Christian girl all the way. That's where I was freshman year, and then sophomore year it just went the opposite way.
So how did that happen?
So I started to notice after all the fun and games of church was done, which is why I was there. It was not for the organized religion part. It was the free candy on Wednesdays, and the glory of singing on stage, which obviously I like the attention, so that's why I'm in front of a camera a lot. I started to, after I grew out of like seeing all those shiny things, noticed that everyone in the church was like drinking a lot, doing drugs, like adults, like parents. My youth pastor had an affair. And so I was just like, maybe this organized religion thing is not everything they claim for it to be. And then I started exploring more in other areas of teenhood, started going to parties, and then that's when like my super sexual being kicked in, and it just full force took over. And then sophomore, I did earn the hashtag name sophomore sleut. Also, I was known as like Tits McGee, because I've had these girls since freshman year. But yeah, so then it was kind of like, oh, okay, so religion is not for me. It doesn't fit. And yeah, I kind of went the opposite direction of what they taught me in church.
So like doing, being in church and all of that, all that type of stuff happening. Like those were people who, were supposed to be the symbol of like living properly and righteously, and like how you're supposed to live, by God. Like seeing them live in such a toxic way and such a reckless, just like manner, did that have an influence on all of a sudden you deciding to do what you did, like moving forward, where you're like, oh, now I want to get crazy?
I don't know if it was the contradiction of them preaching to all of us younger people, you need to live this way, and then it was the hypocrisy of them not living that way that was like, oh, like you can't say for me to do these things when you're not doing them. That was a light switch in my head. I don't really care how they lived. honestly, now that I'm an adult, I'm like, oh, I get it. Like, I get, like, being in a monogamous relationship is hard for some. It's not meant for some. So I get, like, why some people cheat. Not that I'm not saying that it's correct. I get the extracurricular of wanting to do more substance play and, like, drinking. Like, I get the allure of all of that. It was more the hypocrisy of being so demonized if you did any of that, when it was like, oh, you're demonizing, like, children for wanting to explore this when you're an adult and, like, you're doing the exact same thing. That was really like, oh, I don't want any part of the hypocrisy. The organized religion part, I don't like the organized religion. The spiritual aspect of the religion I, like, have stuck with, and that's still a huge part of, like, my being and my morality. So I'm happy that I went through that. And it did give me a bunch of really great friends, and I actually just went to Coachella with a girl who was in my youth group, and it was so funny as we're, like, jamming out at a Coachella set, like, quite inebriated, and we're just like, you remember where we met, like, in youth group? Like,
So that's interesting that you say that, because I, grew up not super religious, but I did my first communion and those things. And man, sorry for the noise with these motors, but we decided to do this at a great place. We wanted to be by the beach, and it doesn't even matter because we really could be anywhere. Just can't even see the beach. The sun was too strong. Yeah. But like, that was one thing for me, was like seeing the hypocrisy as well, and like so many people that were religious, but they were just terrible people. Yeah. And I was like, wait, I might not go to church as much anymore, or not go to church anymore, but I treat human beings and other people just way better than you do. Like, my moral compass is pointing in the right direction. Yours is backwards, but you go to church on Sunday, so you think you're, like, forgiven or something. It was just it was so hypocritical. Yeah,
sin all week, and then on Sunday, as long as we repent our sins, we're fine. And it's funny because I was never raised religious either. I chose that path on my own. My mom, when I was younger, took me to every organized religious structure and was like, okay, now you choose what you want. And it literally was just because of the games on Wednesdays that I was like, oh, Christian religion is for me. I like getting together with all my friends, playing games, winning prizes. Like, it was fun. So it was like the allure of all of that. And yeah, I'm grateful that she never, like, pressured me into being in an organized religion. And whenever I would decide to leave, she was like, oh, thank God, because I was really tired of hearing you preach Bible verses at me when I'm drinking a glass of wine at night.
Dude, I totally forgot about Wednesdays. That was when you would go...
Youth group.
Yeah, youth group. You do the little, play games. Like, you'd learn stuff like class and stuff. Yeah. But then it was like games, and for us, we had this like dinner after where everybody would go get food, and it would be a little, dinner, and like we were always there for the games and for dinner, and it was the best thing ever.
It was the best thing ever. And then I, like, sang in the choir too, so it was fun, like, getting up on stage. I love music, and so that was another, like, thing that, like, drew me into the church, and then, of course, being on stage and, like, getting the clout of, like, being up there, and I'm like, ha, you guys are in the seats.
You're putting on a show, getting clout before clout was even a thing.
Before clout was even a thing, yeah.
Wait, leave me real quick. You got a little...
mascara.
There, got you.
Cool.
Got you, girl. But yeah, so like what you mentioned, the spirituality part of it, like I definitely, listened to like those verses. There was things that really resonated with me, and teachings that really resonated with me. And even in college, I remember one of my classes, we were learning about all the philosophers and things like that. We went into Bible verses, and there's like stories and teachings and lessons within all of these stories, and I'm like, dude, that, like, I still live by that to some extent. Like, a lot of stuff I don't even remember where it came from or what, but like then I'm like, oh, that was from the Bible, you know, and then you're like, oh, I still do recall those things, and they play a role in my life, but I just don't consciously think like religion about that stuff. Yeah,
well, and like the sentiment of organized religion is like, I think it's a beautiful thing, and I think when people are in a really low place, like they need something to lean on, so I get the idea of like all of it, but I think as humans, we have a toxicity that just kind of runs in us, and when too many people too many of the wrong people get into an organized group, like things go bad. And I think that's just kind of what has happened with religion. And then again, it comes back to the hypocrisy is like these people think that like their sins are just washed away. It's like, no, like you need to be a good person, not just on Sundays, like Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday all matter as well.
Dude, last time I went to church, my buddy, he was dealing with drug addiction, and church helped, to an extent with that. It didn't do anything for him because the people ended up just honestly making things worse. But it ended up being a super culty church. And he asked me, like, bro, please, like, as my best friend, will you please come? Like, to this church, this is what's going on. I was like, of course, I'll support you. I haven't been to church in forever. I'll go. And the pastor and his wife just stared at me the entire time because I was the new person. I was like, no, like, don't even. I was pissed, dude. I was like in my head, I'm like, keep staring at me, bro. And then they came up to me, like, he really, like, they had a conversation, the two of them. And then all of a sudden, he's pointing at me, and he's like, I could tell, like, he was just trying to get me in his
He's
cult.
like, you're a new person. I need to lure you in.
Exactly. I felt like he was preying on me, and I was like, oh, this guy's no idea. Like, he's trying to prey on the wrong person. I'm never coming back, and not especially I'm not. And then his wife told my buddy that, like, he has to pick between marijuana and alcohol and God and these things, then that he can't have weed and God. But, like, alcohol was cool,
Turn water into wine?
But that's what's funny, right? So, like, they were cool with the alcohol part because of that, but weed was not okay. And I was like, what? I was like, what are we doing here? His drug problem isn't with weed; it's with actual drugs.
Yeah. The last time I stepped foot into a church, other than in like wedding scenarios, was in 2018, and I went to a church in Uptown Dallas, which is like a really hoity-toity area. And I remember walking in, the pastor had a Louis Vuitton briefcase, a Louis Vuitton Bible case, and then for the first 30 minutes, church is only an hour, y'all. For the first 30 minutes, they were talking about how you needed to tithe 10%. Or you were not going to get to heaven. And I was just like, this is a crock of shit. Like, I'm sorry, but paying your way into heaven is not how you get into heaven. Like, you can be the poorest person out there, and as long as you have a kind heart and you're doing your best every day to help be a better person, better other people's lives, like, that's how you get into quote-unquote heaven, whatever it is. Honestly, we have no idea. And anybody who says they know does not know. So also, just be a good person, whether something's up there or not.
Was this when you went? Was this before you got into the adult industry?
Yes and no. I was 19, so I had already started dancing at the time. I like going to church on Sundays because, like, the music, I just really like. I still jam out to Christian music, even though, like, I don't affiliate myself with any kind of religion. But the songs are cool. They slap.
It is, dude. It is fun. The music is nice.
Yeah, I like it.
I was gonna make the joke though. I was like, it had to be before you got into the adult industry because you'd walk in and just go up in flames.
Literally, I went to a wedding in a church. I guess it was a year ago now. And as I was walking in with my buddy, and he was like, "Are you gonna make it through this? Like, are you gonna combust into flames?" And as I like took a step in, I was like, oh, "I made it.
I lived.
I lived to tell the tale."
Yeah, I didn't expect to get into religion.
Here we are.
Talking to porn stars about organized religion. Baby, let's go. Welcome to the podcast.
And Jesus loved can I say whore? Jesus loved whores. He did. Mary Magdalene was like the biggest slut in the world, and he was BFFs with her.
Was that your route? And you're like, you know what? This. No, I'm gonna go this way. This one is happening. Yeah.
I mean, when I read the Scarlet Letter, I was like, feels like me. I mean, in high school, I was like, I probably should wear an A.
You're like, I relate to this.
I relate to that. Yeah.
If you told me in high school that I'd be interviewing porn stars or shooting anything of, like, even shooting swimwear stuff, I'd just be like, doesn't sound likely. I didn't lose my virginity until I was 20 years old. I was an innocent little boy. Now I'm sitting here with Kenzie.
So proud. High school, you would be so proud.
Were you such a good little girl for a portion of high school?
My freshman year, and that was about it.
Oh yeah, you kind of already said that.
Yeah, freshman year, I was annoyingly good. Like, my mom was like, please, like, go do something else and stop judging me for my life. And then I just went the complete opposite way, and she was like, oh, shit, maybe she really did need church.
Church was a good thing. Okay, so what year do we need to go over now? We did freshman and what, sophomore year?
Yeah,
So
sophomore
now, so
year.
junior year, senior year, what was finishing off high school like?
Okay, so I don't think a lot of people know this about me. So junior year is where shit really started to hit the fan. I became a heroin addict. And junior year, it was mainly pills that started it all, but I did go hardcore into the drug scene world, selling and using. And then it was the very beginning of my senior year that my mom realized like how bad everything was, and she was like, "Oh no, you're going to rehab." So I actually graduated like 2 months into my 3 months into my senior year in rehab. I spent my 18th birthday in rehab. I was transferred from the adolescent unit into the adult unit, and I've been clean since.
Damn, good for you. That's
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's interesting that just came up because my buddy who I went to the church with, he was addicted to heroin.
Yep.
So I went through thinking that my best friend was gonna die at one
Yeah.
point because of that drug, and that, like, dude, that's no joke. Like, it's crazy, and to deal with somebody who is going through that phase, like, it is so hard. So I can only
So
imagine
hard.
what it was like for your mom,
Yeah.
being that her child is going
Yeah.
through that.
Well, and then it was hard for her not only to see me in the thick of it, but then also I've had 15 plus friends die from drug addiction. Some of them in high school, quite a few in high school, and then even further out. Like I still have friends. I wouldn't even say friends, distant friends, who are still battling their addiction problems. And so I'm so appreciative and grateful that my mom was able to catch it and then had the financial means to be like, "Oh no, bitch, you're going into a place where they can handle all of that."
Yeah, that's good. We had to we had to get my buddy in jail. that was
Yeah.
his rehab, was jail.
Yeah.
And I remember when we were going through the thick of everything, and I came to terms where, like, oh, I think I have to accept that my buddy's probably going to die soon. And so the only thing that we could do, because we couldn't get a hold of him, like, he
Yeah.
just disconnected from us because he didn't want to hear us. And
Automatic
so
shit.
we tried to get him arrested when we knew he was going to go buy drugs. And we
Yeah.
went to the cops and we're like, yo, down the street, this time, this heroin deal's going down. This is like everything. And they did not care.
Yeah.
And they were like, get out of here. Like, you guys are idiots. And we're like, we just gave you a drug bust, dude. And then yeah, they didn't want to do anything. And then it ended up being, other things happened, and we were then able to be like, yo, this is what happened. This is who it was. Get him and get him sober. And sure
Yeah.
enough, that's literally what happened. He got sober, went and got his master's degree, got married, living the good life. Shout out to you, bro. I'm not going to
Shout out
name
to
you, but
you.
shout out to you.
Sober life. Yeah.
So do you have anything to, like, what words of advice would you give someone going through that time?
Honestly, everyone's path is so different, but I think the only thing, and it's everything that they teach you in rehab and sober programs, is you literally just have to realize that you are an addict and you cannot use. And like everyone's path is different. My drug of choice was so hardcore, and I've found my sobriety is a lot different than a lot of people's in the rehab communities. Like, I can still drink, but I think when it comes down to it, you need to be like completely sober for a really long time and figure out your boundaries with yourself before you do anything. And when I'm saying sober for a long time, like at least a year before you dabble in any kind of anything else.
And what would you say to the people who have loved ones that are going through this? Like, what advice would you give them with dealing with that?
Honestly, to bring it back to religion, you have to let go and let God and just hope and pray that that person comes back to it, because it doesn't matter how much you say. I mean, you should be doing everything that you can to try and remind that person that, like, they need to live for themselves, and drugs there's only two ways out, and that's death or jail. But honestly, it comes down to, is that person ready to get clean for themselves? Because so many people said things to me, and I was just like in one ear and out the other, and it wasn't until I had the self-realization and I wanted to get clean for me that I did.
And that's like the harsh reality of those situations, is whenever people ask me how I dealt with it and how to deal with it, I'm like, there's nothing you can do. I'm I'm like, there's no words are going to change this person's mind. Like, it has to be them. Like, they have to make that conscious decision
Yep.
to be like, I'm ready. I'm going to make the changes, and I'm going to get sober.
Yeah.
And like, for a lot of people, jail is a blessing. You
Yep.
know, some people like you, lucky enough, you did decide like, I am going to go to rehab
Yep.
and do that and get clean, and now living the good life, baby.
Yeah.
By the van.
And I think the best thing that like my mom told me is she kind of put the fear of God in me, where she was like, okay, it's either you get clean or like I have to cut you off for my own personal well-being. So it's okay to set that boundary with somebody who's like in the thick of their addiction and be like, okay, until you are going to get clean for you, like I can no longer allow you into my energetic field because it's so hard. And sometimes that's the epiphany that somebody needs, is like, oh shit, people are cutting me off. And so like I have family members who struggle with addiction, and some of my other family members can't cut that cord, and I've seen them. I mean, I have a family member who's in his he's in his 50s, and he's still struggling, and it's because people still feed into it. And so you really just have to cut that cord, and it's hard and it's painful, and sometimes it doesn't end up the way you want it to go. But I think that's the thing I've realized, at least in my personal field.
I think that's one of the most frustrating things that I see, is where like people are enabling that person.
Yeah.
100%. Like when people give money to that person because I'm like, dude, I'm like, what do you think they're going to do with that money? I'm like, you need to let them go to rock bottom, as low as that's going to go. And like that rock bottom might be the worst fear coming true ever. But like, if you're going to, like, that fear is going to come true if you continue to enable them and allow them to keep using and using.
Yep.
And that's like, yeah, I feel bad for anyone that's got to deal with that in their life. And unfortunately, we live in a time and in a world where that is so prevalent. Like, it's huge.
Yeah.
Opioids, heroin, cocaine, you name it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I am somebody who I am outside, like I said, the norms of sobriety. Like, I go to music festivals, I eat the psilocybin, I eat the LSD, I do those things, and I've realized that's where like my boundaries lie. So I'm not saying that substance play isn't a great thing for certain people, but I think there are certain substances that should just be absolutely off the table for anyone and everyone all around the board. Yeah, heroin.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, and like that thing too is like playing with any type of drug. I feel like after that, it's such a slippery slope too, where it's like you really have to be sober for a long time, like know yourself and can like really legitimately trust yourself to make those decisions, because that opening, you could open up that can of worms real quick.
Well, and you don't want to use any kind of extracurricular substance as an escapism. You want to use it as like a medicine. Okay, so like when I eat the magic mushies, I'm like, okay, what are these magic mushies going to teach me? And am I in a safe environment with the safe people around me? Like, am I abusing how much I'm taking? Like, or am I doing the smallest dose so like I'm not overwhelmed? Like, that's what you have to think of. You have to think of it as like, I'm not trying to get fucked up. Like, I'm not trying to get messed up. I'm trying to, yes, inebriate my state, but in a respectful manner to myself and to the substance I'm taking.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
Yeah.
It's a perfect way to go about it. People always ask me, like, you've never done X, Y, and Z drugs? I'm like, no, dude. I'm like, I didn't need my buddy's mom was addicted, and like I saw what she was addicted to, and like I wanted nothing to do. People are like, you've never done coke? And I'm like, no. Like now I did like a teeny little bit just to try it, and I had no interest in it.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's something that I was like, I don't even know why I even touched it. 'Cause like I don't even want to play that game. Like I've seen what it can do.
Yeah. Well, and especially when you see like the detriment it has to people's lives, and then I'm sorry, but the financial cost of it all, like it's expensive. So why do I want to waste my money on that when I can go get high on life? Yeah.
Dude, get high on life.
Get high on life.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Okay, so you go through that, you get sober. What's next?
So then I got out of rehab and I started working in the restaurant industry. And that was I think everyone should have to work in the restaurant industry. I think 100%. I think people who, you can tell when somebody hasn't worked in the restaurant industry, and I think everyone should do it because it teaches you like how to be quick paced, like time management skills, friendliness, even when people are being straight jerks to you because they're hungry and they're in a hurry. But yeah, then I did that for quite a few years on and off. Yeah.
I feel like certain people are like, oh, you can always tell people that never worked in the restaurant industry because of how they act and the way they handle certain things. Like when I was on vacation, I had people that wanted us to go to the restaurant and get a table reservation 30 minutes before they closed, and they weren't showing up till 10 minutes before they were going to close and wanted us to hold down the table. And I was like, I refuse to be that person.
Yeah.
I was like, no. And I'm like sympathizing with the hostess, the people there. I'm like, I ended up leaving and going to get food and going back to my room.
Yeah. Or you, like, if it's 30 minutes before you close, you take your order to go. And if it's 10 minutes, just go somewhere else. Do not order a meal 10 minutes before a restaurant closes. Like, don't do it. People do things to your food. And it's not pretty.
I never experienced anyone doing stuff to food, but when she worked, it was going down.
Yeah, it wasn't me, but the cooks were pissed after they had already cleaned the grill and then they're having to fry burgers again or do something like that. And it's like they're trying to get home to their families. Like, don't be that jerk. Or if there is absolutely no other option, you better be tipping 50% on placing an order that late at night. You better make up for it in a tip if that's your only other option of food.
That's what I told my buddy because he stayed, and they stayed an hour and a half after closing. And I was like, and in the morning when I woke up, I was like, bro, I'm like, you guys better have tipped them so fast. I was like, oh, I'd be so pissed. I was like, those people working are going to remember you guys forever as that table that they hate it.
Yeah, they're going to have another couple that stays like a little too late, and they're going to be like, oh, here we go, a repeat of those guys staying an hour and a half, flashbacks, PTSD.
Flashback to you, little... Yeah, I still remember like certain people that kept me there late, 'cause we always had in my restaurant this couple that would come 20 minutes before we'd close, and they'd bring their own bottle of wine. So I'm not even getting like a bottle of wine sale. And they would, and our restaurant would let you do that. It's a very old school type thing, I feel like. But they would stay, and I'd get stuck there an extra hour every single time. So when they walked in, I just despised them. And luckily, finally, our manager stepped up and was like, yo, you can't keep doing this. They literally did it every single week. It was crazy.
I would be so annoyed. Also, another tip for, like, if you ever go eat at a restaurant, please, dear God, tip 20%. If you're not tipping 20% and I see you write less than 20% on your check, I will never go out to a restaurant with you again, because those servers in America do not make a paycheck. Literally, it's all you make like $4 an hour. I haven't been in the service industry for a while, but your paycheck is eaten all by your taxes. You don't make shit. So please, dear God, I had to teach my friend the other day that 5% on a tip was not acceptable. I was like, if you ever want to be caught at a restaurant with me, 5% is not adequate.
Like, you might as well not even tip. Like, it'd be nice if you just didn't tip than just to leave such a, like, measly amount.
Yeah, well, I mean, at least the $5, like, pays to, like, cover, like, the bar fee that they have, because at the end of the night, servers have to tip out the bussers and the bar if you order drinks. So then if you don't tip at least 18%, most of the time they're losing money.
Are you the person that will, if you see like what someone tipped, or if they didn't tip enough, like you'll just throw some cash down on the way out just to make sure it's like the right amount?
Yes, and if it's my rich friends, I will rewrite on your check. I have been like, oh, you're going to the bathroom before we leave, adding an extra $0, like just to teach you a lesson. And then I tell you when we get in the car, oh, you tipped $100, you didn't know.
I thought you shouldn't even say anything. Just let them find out. They'll probably never find out because they probably don't look at their statements.
Yeah. Tip 20%. Dear God.
Yeah, it's very simple.
Yeah.
And yeah, working in the restaurant, you learn so many lessons, and you learn work ethic, and you learn how to handle the public and deal with crappy people, and you appreciate good people like no other. Like I still think about people that were regulars that treated me literally like their son.
Yeah.
And like I literally had a lady, her and her husband would come in every week, and she told me she couldn't have kids, and she's like, if I was ever able to have kids, I wish that my kid would be just like you. And I was like, dude, I was ready to tear. I still think about it. I'm ready to tear. I'm like, that was like the most emotional thing for this like older woman to say, that like you embody what I wish my child would be. And she was like, please tell your mom that she did such a great job with you. And I was like, oh, I will. I was like, Mom.
My mom probably won't think the same, but
My mom was like, she doesn't see when you got your issues, that's for sure.
She didn't have to go through 18 years of torture. No, I'm just kidding.
She's like, she doesn't have to deal with you asking her for stuff. You're getting her stuff, right? This is a whole different ballgame.
Like, wait, were you a good kid or were you a bad kid?
No, I was a good kid, but I had my issues, you know. But I didn't get in trouble. Oh my goodness, I don't condone this. Just so you guys know.
Okay. Along with the substance, dear God, if you're young and you have not smoked, do not ever pick these freaking things up. Don't do it. This is the hardest substance to quit. Nicotine.
Will you quit that for me? Just like that, baby. That easy. See the power. See the power.
I'm gonna crawl back to it later.
She'll be crawling back to it for sure.
Absolutely. I'm like, it didn't break. Okay, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, you throw it and you're like, we're good. It is right by the tire though.
Accidentally
That could get ran over
another one
quick.
under my seat. If you look behind you, it's like it's been there for a year. And I everyone's like, you know, you have an extra vape behind your chair, and I'm like, it's my just in case vape.
Okay, so back to not bad things that this young lady is up to, or maybe we can't get into bad things. So what? Yeah. So yeah, probably. It's not that bad though. It's not drug addiction, so we're good.
Yeah.
Nothing's worse than that bottom that you conquered and you overcame.
For sure, bottom. Yeah.
Okay, so where are we going next on this journey? Where would you like to take us?
So then I started dancing, and that's where the journey.
Like I forgot the song. I'm in love with the stripper.
She riding, she grinding up on the pole. I don't know the words. Is that the words?
Something like that. It's been a while since I've heard it.
Yeah, I have to play it in the car. Yeah, so I started dancing. Actually, it was like simultaneous with the restaurant industry. And shout out to Charlie. I've never talked to him ever again after he was my cab driver. This is before Ubers. I'm aging myself here. So I did have a car, and I was working in the service industry, and he was my regular cab driver that I became buddies with. He picked me up 3 times, and quinky dinkly, I was like, hey, like, you're always in my area. You're always on my schedule. Can I just grab your number instead of calling the cab service to pick me up? I'll just call you and then pay you directly. And so he started driving me to my restaurant, and he was like picking me up one night late, and he had a dancer in his car, and I was like, interesting. And I actually started going to the club, and I would make him drive me because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here. Can you take me and drop me off and pick me up so I know I'm safe? Like, I don't have a car, so I don't want to be in the car with a random person, especially like when I'm coming home with a fat stack of cash. So Charlie was my main driver for the first year that I was dancing.
Damn, she had a personal driver. That's some ballin' stuff right there.
I really wish I would have kept in contact with him because, yeah, he actually opened the door to a lot of my life. He was also the one who got me into webcamming after so many late nights of dancing. I have very sensitive skin. I'm a sensitive girly, and so I kept breaking out in rashes from like dancing on people and everyone's fabric detergent, their colognes, and so I kept breaking out in rashes, and so then it would put me down from dancing for a while. And he was like, hey, have you ever heard of this thing called webcamming? And I was like, say more. And he was like, I have a friend who's starting a company who does webcamming, and it's literally just like dancing, but from behind a screen and at your own home. And I was like, sign me up right now. So he introduced me to his friend. I signed up for the company. I started working for the company, and unfortunately the company was very slow. So then I started Googling other webcamming sites, and lo and behold, I found My Free Cams. And then I was on My Free Cams for 5 years in total.
Yeah, that's a long time. So how long were you doing that? Like every day, a couple times a week? How'd that work?
When it started out, it was like for the first 6 months, it was every day. And I was constantly like in and out of Skype show or like one-on-one like private shows, and then the live stream. And then I took like 2 years off, got into a relationship, and a man told me, I don't want you to be in the sex worker industry if you're going to be dating me. And I thought that was the way I was going to go. Don't ever leave your job for a man. It won't work. Anywho, and then I went back to webcamming for another 3 years. And yeah, that was, or I guess it was more than that. It was 4 years. And that's literally how I paid to build this van. That's how I paid to build the one before that. It's how I've traveled a lot of the country. It's how I've moved myself before I lived in the van to multiple different states. And yeah, it's paid for my entire life pretty much, and then how I got here.
So one thing to say to all the haters that want to hate on the cam girl lifestyle, any of that type of stuff, whatever, teach their own. But at least she was traveling and got a van and had some sweet life experiences because of it. That's pretty sweet.
Wait, what's the hate on the cam girls?
What, you don't know that people hate on people hate on everything, but there's those groups of people on the internet like like the Book Duty data where it's like sex work is bad or like don't do this or that, like you're degrading yourself and that like you don't deserve this or deserve that. You hear there's something. Just going to the comment threads on Instagram or social media platforms and it's crazy.
Just the general hate on. Oh, don't forget your pass. That's the alarm.
That's my alarm, so I don't forget my beach pass in this van because then I'm gonna have to pay for parking when I go surfing next time. But no, we're gonna continue this show. We're gonna keep it rolling.
The hate on sex workers in general is astounding to me because it's the one profession where women can pull themselves out of like the deepest, darkest crevices of the world. I've seen so many single moms, people who are orphans, be able to build a life for themselves in a way exacerbated rate than they ever could in any kind of 9-to-5 or minimum wage paying job. Same with myself. I was raised by a single mom who was a teacher, did not have a whole lot of financial means. My family is not wealthy at all. And I am now the wealthiest person in my family. And I'm able to help them. And so it has built a life not only for me to be able to do whatever the heck I want, but it's also I'm able to give back to the family who helped raise me.
I love that story. That's beautiful. Yeah. And to add on to that, I feel like people, especially men, they won't like admit to it. Like you also help people who are lonely and don't have anyone to love them or whatever you want to call it, where it's like, think about, especially in this day and age, I think I saw something was like 50% of men in America are sexless right now. And like they're like a lot of girls, younger women, whatever you want to call them. Yeah, let's say younger women. Yes. They're dating older men because of financial security. And then, I forget. We don't need to get into the whole study and stuff that I read. But there's all these reasons why men in America right now, they're going without sex. They're not having relationships. And there's a lot of single men and like what that does to their mental health and things like that. Where it's like girls like you give them an outlet to be able to put that energy into a female. Yeah. Even if it's, not like a normal way of dating someone, but at least they're having some type of interaction with a girl. Yeah, when I've had many people tell me that, like, in their loneliest times, like, I was the one that kept them from the verge of, like, committing suicide because they had me to come back and talk to and chat to on my paid pages. Obviously, they're paying for a service, but I try and show them as much kindness and lovingness as possible. I have so many clients that they've never seen a woman's body in full form. And they're too nervous and don't have the social skills to be able to go and talk to a woman. So in our sessions, like, we talk about the appropriateness, how to approach a woman, how to handle a woman whenever you do have her in your presence. I have a lot of disabled clients who it's harder for them to make connections because they're wheelchair bound or have Tourette's or something like that. And so it's so, and I have a lot of normal, I wouldn't say normal, that's a bad term, but I have a lot of neurotypical, is that? Just people that don't have those issues.
Yeah, don't have those issues, who are just so busy. I mean, our freaking economy is so expensive, so it's hard to have two full-time jobs and sustain a relationship, and a lot of women are looking for full-time relationships, and it's like, most people don't have the time to put into that. And so it's like, I just need 2 hours of your time, 10 minutes of your time on a Skype show, like whatever it is. Like, I just need this release in a safe space where like it's a loving environment for here, but then I know you're not going to be calling me 40 times a day.
Yeah, that is so true. Yeah. And like, and especially there's people like you said who are just so busy. I mean, there's Yeah, there's so people who are so busy where it's like they can't have a relationship, and if they weren't doing what they're doing with girls like you on the internet, then they would probably be in toxic relationships and creating bad environments for other females that would have to take on that burden of them not being able to give what they need to give in a proper relationship, and instead they channel that energy into, into you.
Yeah. Or they would be the toxic one in the relationship because they enter into a relationship so they can have the convenience of a physical interaction, but their heart is not in it. So then they're leading someone on, creating a toxic environment when it's none of us want any of that. And so it's literally, I'm just a safe space to be able to, one, play out your desires in case, like the other day, I got to meet a lovely man who just went through a divorce, and he had only been with his wife, and he was like, I've never done this position and this position and this position, and so can we, like, I literally made him write out a list. I was like, tell me all the positions you want to do, and like we'll be able to check them off. Because if he was in a normal setting with a regular girl who isn't as well experienced, if he was like, hey, like, I haven't done these positions, like, can I just flip you over right now? And it's like, that would be awkward for someone who is not providing a service.
That's crazy to think about.
Yeah.
Like that's real. Like people are in relationships where they have zero communication. Their sex life is terrible. Like they're not fulfilling their desires and not doing what they need to do to like be in a happy relationship and live just a happy lifestyle. And then they get out of it, and now it's like this whole brand new world, and they don't even know how to function in that world.
Yeah.
And that's the most wild thing. Like I've had, talk to people who are like, after being in a relationship like their entire life, they're like, oh, I know I could get out and just be good, like know how to talk to women, know how to do X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, bro, it's hard. Like I've been single most of my life, and I've had relationships sprinkled in, and then even after being like a 2-year relationship, you break up and you're kind of like, oh, I need to kind of transition again and remember what it's like to go into different situations and like actually approach women and actually like put myself in these uncomfortable situations to be judged, but also like you have to do it in order to like potentially get something that you want.
Yeah. Well, and then times change so rapidly that you might enter a relationship for 2 years and then you get out, and like society is different. So how you approach someone is completely different. Yeah. And so, yeah, it's just, it's hard, especially to be a single person, wanting a physical interaction and not knowing how to obtain it. So that's where I come in. I always thought, I would love to be a sexier version of the mom from Meet the Fockers, where she like teaches old people like how to have better intercourse. And I'm like, awesome. I would love to do that, because I also think people in partnerships don't know how to communicate with each other in an effective way, where it's like you have this fantasy, but you're like, ooh, I'm kind of scared to tell my partner that I want to do this like kinky thing, and I'm scared of being judged, and then it's going to ruin our relationship. And it's like, no, like you want to speak your desires. Obviously, there's a way to speak them properly, but let's figure out how we can find a common ground. Or if your partner is like super judgy of your kink or fantasy, then it's like, okay, where in this fantasy can we find a common denominator? And then can we explore from there? And then maybe you throw your fantasies in on top of that. And so I've always thought that's where I would end up after I'm done in this side of.
I love that idea. Yeah. I think we should get that going for you.
Yeah.
What do you guys think? We'll be business partners. Let's do this. We'll do it together. Because I love talking to dudes. I mean, men and women when it comes to these things. And like especially like communication is number one.
Yes.
And it's like the amount of people who are too afraid to like speak about their desires and their sexual fantasies and like their wants and needs when it comes to sex in a relationship. And I'm like, how are you dating someone that you can't, or married to someone that you can't communicate with and you can't talk about these things? That's the number one thing. That's also one of my biggest pet peeves, is like when I'm going on like starting to date somebody, and when it comes to like sexual subjects, like they're too shy to talk about it, or they feel uncomfortable. And I'm like, you're a grown adult who is taking part in this physical act that is, like, if you can't talk about it, how are you actually? You shouldn't be doing it.
Well, and if you can't talk about it now, where's there going to be growth? Because obviously, like, there are thoughts and desires that we have right now, but where are we going to be in 10 years in our relationship? Like, we can't just do the same 4 positions over and over again. So it's like we're going to have some kind of communication and some kind of way to say, okay, like, let's add this in to keep it interesting. Otherwise, I do think that's why a lot of marriages fall apart, is because it's like, oh, we find this one single groove and we stay in it. We never deviate from that path together. And so figuring out how to grow together, and we're all sexual beings. And so sex is a huge part of being in a relationship and being a human. And so it's, how do we figure out how to communicate our desires with someone that we love, or multiple people that we love, in an effective and safe way.
How have you gone into like when you go into a relationship, how do you lay things out on the table for someone? Because, like, for instance, me and my girlfriend, when we first started talking, we told every crazy story we had from the get-go. It, like, created this very fun, like, you know, excitement around once we finally were gonna do it ourselves, like, if it was gonna get to that point. But it was, like, also it was like you put yourself so out there to let them know everything about you that, like, judge all you want, but, like, if we're moving on, like, you know everything. Like, there's no reason to hide everything. It just makes communication so much easier moving forward. It's like, you already know all my crazy slut stories. You know the dog that's in there somewhere, like, and now you get to enjoy it because that's being released on you, and you enjoy it, like, in, you know, a positive sexual way. But, like, if you're not discussing those things, it can be very tough. I think in the beginning, just get it out there and just know that, like, if they aren't into it at all, you saved yourself so much time. It's done and over with.
Yeah, well, and I think that is the biggest thing, is, like, you have to lay all of your cards in a sexual manner and in just a characteristic manner. Like, okay, like, I know this about myself. I'm laying all my cards out on the table, so we're not wasting our time here. And this is me in a full. I'm not going to sugarcoat myself. I'm not going to try and, like, dim my light. This is what I'm into. And, like, let me hear what you're into, and hopefully it matches, and so we can grow together, because now you guys have built a beautiful foundation, so you guys can grow together, because you do know all the weird, freaky shit that both of you are into. Yeah.
And then you're like, and you can recall that. You're like, oh, so now, well, let's do this. Or, like, I think that one of the most important things, too, is just, like, learning what someone likes and what they don't like from the very beginning. Like, that whenever a girl tells me, like, oh, well, you'll figure it out, I'm like, I don't want to figure it out. I want to make sure that it's always a positive experience. Obviously, it's not always going to be a positive experience, but I want to eliminate the chances that it goes south as best as possible.
Yeah.
And, like, when a girl tells me, like, oh, you'll figure things out, I'm like, no, that just means that you are too immature to tell me what you like and what you don't like, while I'm over here just being able to say everything because I'm not a child.
I wouldn't even say that they're immature. I would say they haven't done enough self-exploration on themselves to be able to, one, know what they want, and two, to communicate it with you. So that's where you're like, okay, I've done the work. I know what I want. We're going to leave you here, and I hope and pray that you grow and you figure out, and the next partner you have you can communicate your needs and boundaries too. Because if you don't know your boundaries, I think that's another thing, is, like, you need to know your own personal boundaries before you step into any partnership, because otherwise there's a line that you might not know that could be crossed, and then it's going to ruin your time and the other person's time, and it can be very scary and dangerous at that point.
Yeah, and everybody knows that, like, any man, especially, you know, me as a man talking to the men out there, you know that when you do something wrong and the girl's not into it, like, for instance, girls, not all girls, but a lot of girls, like, it's very hard to get them to finish, you know? Then, like, that's always, at least for me and most dudes I know, like, that's always the goal. Like, all right, I have one mission, and that's to get you to finish, because we're usually men, like, we're easy, like, that shit can go quick.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's the one goal. Like, I want to just get rid of any chance I have to mess that up, because I know one wrong move and the person could just lose it. Like, the girl can just lose it and it's not coming back.
Yep.
And you're like, damn, I'm so close.
Yeah. And I've also discovered something very new. So I used to be a very shy masturbator. Like, how I masturbate is not pretty. I lay on my stomach and I flick my bean, and it's not cute. I do not film any content that shows that. And so I think a lot of men think that there is a way to get off of women, and it's partly due to porn, which a lot of the porn that you see is super hot, very sexually fulfilling. But there's also things that women's bodies like that are not typically filmed. And so if you're a woman out there, tell your partner what you like. I know I have one specific spot on my area that I'm like, if you hold your finger right here, you don't even really have to move it. Like, if you hold it there while you're penetrating, like, we're gonna be golden. And so it's figuring out, and again, this is something new that I've learned because I've been very shy about like how I get myself off. I have been just like letting men, and I'm also an anomaly. I'm a very easy getting to the O. I'm trying to like think of like YouTube friendly words because I am so not a very censored person in real life. But yeah, to get me to an O, I'm easy to get there from all different ways. But yeah, my best way and like the top way is with this one certain spot. And now I started telling people, I'm like, just put it right there and then do your thing and we'll both be good to go. Huh.
And see, tips and tricks like that, like dudes appreciate that. 'Cause you're like, all right, sweet. And like, especially if it's in the beginning of like a relationship or the first time you're, doing something with someone, it's like knowing those little things from the get-go also puts you at ease, and it makes everybody comfortable, and it makes just this situation just so much more enjoyable and fulfilling because like, all right, I know this little trick, or I know these things. I know that this person's going to enjoy it, and I can kind of take stress off of myself.
Yeah, and if you're like new and you're trying to figure someone out, I found like the sexiest thing to do is just ask a question. Like when I'm touching it, I'm like, oh, does that feel good? Or like, do you like it here? Do you like it here? And especially with girls, it's like, oh, like how are my hands? Like, do you want more? And so like asking questions in a sexy tone can amp up your pleasure and their pleasure.
Yeah. It is true. Some girls though don't like that. Like they don't want you to ask questions, So it's like you have to be that. Like that's why it's just hard because everybody's different. You're like, what? There's girls like that? I'm the opposite.
Well,
but like there are.
One of those. Okay.
Yeah, no. There's girls that like they either aren't comfortable with just like you talking during the act, or they just they don't like that. Like, 'cause certain people want to hear certain things.
Some people don't like dirty talk.
No, they do. Like, I mean, some people don't at all. Like, I'm sure there's people that don't like it. But there's people that do like dirty talk, but like it in a very specific way. So that's a whole nother layer now, too, is that like the way in which you do just talk has to be done a certain way.
Light bulbs are clicking in my head over here. I'm just like, wait, no dirty. I guess that's why the ball gag was invented. And you're just like, shut up. I don't want to hear any of it. Yeah, wow. Epiphany.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I've probably been with many more girls than you have. I don't know. You might actually. Who knows? You might be kind of close. But girls, I feel like girls are just so much more complicated in so many ways when it comes to that thing. And it's like, with my experience with women, it's like there's so many girls who are into such a wide variety of things that like. Not like you'll do something with one chick and later on you'll be like, oh, I'm gonna pull that out of my pocket on this girl and she does not like it, and you're like, dang, that doesn't work. Like, let's start over.
I also think girls are a lot more complicated because what we crave in one moment is not what we crave in another moment. Like the other day, I was texting my girlfriend. I was like, I really just need to be like cuddle boinked.
Some side spoon.
Yeah, like, and just just let me lay there, be a pillow princess, pat my hair. Where in other moments I'm like, no, I just need to like hard, fast, pull my hair, spit in my mouth. And so it's like, what mood am I in? And honestly, like, this might go further than most people want to hear, but it literally, if you can figure out your girl's cycle, you can almost tell like where and what kind of sex she's gonna want.
Damn, that is so true.
Yeah, we run on 28-day cycles for the most part. So figure out your girl's schedule and then figure out her luteal phase and all of her different phases, and you'll be able to tell when she's at her horniest and when she's at her softest and when she just doesn't want to be fucking touched.
Yeah, that's the most important one to know is when they don't want to be touched. I feel like we need like that could be just a whole interview. In itself is just that, like going into, damn, I'm the worst, dude. It must be on snooze over here. Yeah. My alarm. I'm the one leading this interview. I'm the one that has phones going off. I even made sure it's on silent. I forgot about the alarm. But yeah, I feel like that whole thing could be just like. And maybe that's what we should do. Maybe we should just have a whole nother conversation where we talk about those type of things, and then we talk about your adult career and how that started and where it went and now where you are today.
Oh, we could talk forever.
Yeah, we should. Let's do that.
Okay,
It's
but
getting a
hand me
little.
my jacket first. Can you grab it? I'll hold this on that the chair over there. And then while you're doing that,
Oh, my legs.
we knew this wasn't gonna make it out of the video for much longer.
My legs are absolutely fried right now. Yeah.
You're squatting so low.
I think just because I had my leg up the entire time, where like where as soon as I got up, I just felt like stiff, and I'm like, ooh, I'm getting old, you know. This is how things go.
Oh my god, the other day I was going to film a scene, and normally I do like some light stretches before I get on a set, and I didn't do that day. And as we're getting into positions, it was like everything popped all at once, and it was like while we were filming, and I was like, damn. Please edit that out, editor. Do not leave my creaking.
Damn. My butt was also like kind of stuck in this.
Yeah, they are not the.
In this little chair. I was like afraid. I was like trying to get up. I was like afraid to move. I was like, I don't want, cause it's like the way it wobbles. I didn't want to like break a leg or something. But then I realized now looking at yours, it kind of like pivots.
They're flexy.
Pivots for comfort, flexible.
Yeah.
But hell yeah, well, this was a fun interview. I'm glad we did it. Where can the people find you?
You can find me on Instagram and TikTok as XO Kenzie Love XO, and then Twitter, because my other Twitter got deleted, I am Kenzie Love X. And then OnlyFans, all the paid sites are XO Kenzie Love XO.
There you have it. We will do another one. Hope you enjoyed this talk with Kenzie. And yeah, we'll see you in another episode.
See you in another one.
Do what makes you happy.
Do it. Just go fucking do it. Or go
do it.
Effing do it.
She's trying to censor herself.
I'm trying to censor myself, but it's not going well. Go do it.
Do it.
Cut.